Welcome to the Kitsap Literary Artists and Writers and its monthly author showcase. I am your host, Peter Stockwell. Author Kate Breslin is visiting with us this month at the Bremerton Kitsap Access Television Studios. Kate was scheduled for an interview when BCAT shut down the studio because of COVID-19 in February of 2020. We are happy to connect through Kitsap Literary Artists and Writers and meet her at signing events. Kate is an award-winning writer of historical-inspired books and an avid traveler. Welcome to our broadcast for the Kitsap Literary Artists and Writers.
Thank you, Peter. It's wonderful to be here.
Glad to have you finally make it in.
Yes.
History fascinates a lot of people, including myself. Please tell us about these World War I stories that you have. What inspired you to focus on this period of history?
Well, my very first book was World War II, and I was pretty fascinated with that. And that was back in 2014 when that book published, For Such a Time. And then I decided to explore another piece of history. So I stumbled upon World War I era and found that there were so many things that happened during that period of time. You had women's suffrage during the era. You had automobiles being made in factories. You had all kinds of different changes in our society. And so I kind of delved deeper and deeper into that and found enough information to write 4 and 5 subsequent books to that.
That's great. I can imagine the research is intensive and inspiring.
Yes, I tend to go down the rabbit hole a lot. I have to cut myself off because I love history, and I love finding those rare nuggets that maybe aren't well known, and just kind of creating a fictional story within a real situation or real event that happened, using real characters as kind of an inspiration.
Yeah, and you use the historical aspects of it with the historical people, and they mingle with these characters that you create.
Right, right. Because when I was growing up and reading, I always enjoyed historical novels because the authors would basically teach me something while I was being entertained with the story. Like Middle Ages or the Revolutionary War or whatever type of history I was reading. And so I like to try to do that for my readers, is pass that on and give you a little history lesson without you feeling like you're getting a little history lesson, and enjoying a story as well.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. My parents were born, my dad in 1916 and my mom in 1919.
Oh.
So during that time period. And one of the things that my grandmother on my mother's side said that I thought was rather a sagacious comment was that she had lived from horse and buggy to a landing on the moon, and during that time period. So when you talk about all of the events that are, and the improvements from a technological point of view that are happening around that time period in the World War I, right?
Oh, absolutely. And it's very true. Automobiles at first were very rare for people to have, and then pretty soon, as we got into the 20s and 30s, more and more people had cars to drive. And sadly, sometimes war actually makes us advance in other kinds of science and technology because they need new weapons, or they need new motor vehicles, or they need new this, that, and the other. So
the development of the machine gun and then putting them on an airplane, and then learning how to use the machine gun in such a way that if it was firing forward, it didn't cut your propeller off.
Right.
And so they were intermittent shooting. And it's interesting, but yes, technology, when it's needed, is there. And
that's right. And it
about.
Made great leaps in things like prosthetics for missing limbs and for plastic surgery and that sort of thing too. So, yeah.
Very good. Well, many writers these days self-publish. Like myself, I have my own company. Mm-hmm. But who publishes your books?
Well, Bethany House, which is an imprint of Baker Publishing Group out of Michigan, they are my publishers. So I am traditionally published, as it were, and I received a publishing contract from them in 2014 with my first book. And I've been writing with them ever since. They're a wonderful, wonderful team to work with. And they do a lot of my marketing for me. Of course, I do some of that myself too, but they're very supportive. And
So how did you discover this company?
well, I was a bookseller for 15 years, and I would handle a lot of books, and I remember stocking our shelves with Bethany House books and other books by other publishers. And I just, I love the beautiful packaging. That the book is just beautiful covers. They always give me a wonderful cover. And
Do you have any say on those covers?
I actually
Input?
do. Yeah, actually, we authors do have some input. We can give them some detailed ideas, and it is pretty amazing what they come up with. And also, I decided that I wanted to write inspirational stories. Bethany House is a Christian publisher, so my books are basically, they have a light Christian thread. They're clean books, but I do like to write about romance and adventure and intrigue, and I get kind of carried away sometimes in all the details of the history. I love history, so.
Which is why we have editors.
That's right.
So you kind of alluded to the fact that you did at one point have a day job what else have you done?
Oh, I've had a few careers. My first career was I was in construction, and not wearing the tools, but I worked in the distributing business, electrical distributing business, and did some manager work. And finally, as things turned out, I kind of semi-retired and went into the book-selling business through a friend, and I just loved it. And I was writing the whole time, trying to get published. And finally, it happened for me in 2014. And so that's what I do full-time now.
So does writing support you?
Unfortunately not. It doesn't.
And you have a husband.
I do.
And your husband is working.
Actually, he's retired now.
So the retirement supports you.
Pretty much, yes.
Yeah,
that's right.
I know that one from
So
firsthand.
I'm very blessed to be able to pursue my dream of writing, and he's been wonderful with that too. So
supportive spouses are very helpful.
they are,
Yes.
because it is tough these days. Publishing has changed quite a bit, and so yes, very, very, very blessed.
Does he read your material?
He does.
Does he criticize it?
Actually, he's probably pretty easy on me. He does do before I turn my manuscript into my my publisher, he'll do a last read for me, and he usually gives me a thumbs up. So that's.
He never gives you this?
He might have a couple questions, and I might fix them, but overall, he's pretty good. So when I send it in, I feel pretty good about it, and so far so good.
Yeah. Now, as I understand it, you're a Florida transplant.
Yes, I am. I was born there, and I've actually lived there a couple of times. My dad was in he worked for a company that did defense contracts and things, so we moved around a lot. But yes, Florida is, I still have my family there, and I have family here in Washington. So we're kind of stretched at both ends of the states, but we did live here when I was younger, and I wanted to come back. I love the mountains here and the evergreen trees. And
yeah, something that Florida doesn't have.
No.
Mountains.
No.
I mean, when they talk about a mountain, it's at Disney World.
It's kind of a hill, yeah.
Yeah. So you said you came here at an early age. What brought your family here?
My dad's work.
Okay.
And then we moved back to Florida, actually. So I went to high school and everything there. And then anyway, and I just worked and finally made my way back here. And
So how long have you been here in Kitsap County?
This last time with my husband, we've been here about 40 years now.
40.
Yeah, long time. So I think I'm going to stay.
I think so. Well, I've been here since 1970, so I get it.
Okay, yeah,
I get
you're
it.
even longer, almost 50 years, yes.
As you may have heard, writers write what they know. And of course, you're not old enough to have experienced World War I or II.
No.
So what inspired you to write to this time period? What inspires you to write, period?
I love stories, and I enjoy writing this kind of stories that, I love, and I hope other readers will too. And I usually do immerse myself in enough of the research to feel like I'm I'm there. And then I hope that I convey that onto the page. You write enough and share enough little tidbits of facts and everything and weave a story in. So I guess, it's, and the thing of it is with a novel too is, there's the way your characters feel, the way they react. Those are things I know and and readers know. And hopefully it'll resonate with someone who picks up the book and reads the story.
Do they talk to you?
Sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, I know that feeling because I've had characters who've just been in my head and they've said, you got to tell this. Or you think you're going there with this, but I think this would be a better, I'm planning on doing this. What are you planning on doing? He says, get out of my head. So I write it down in the book and it's out of my head then. All right. So basically you have been a lifelong storyteller, or did you graduate to the construction of your stories?
I kind of graduated too. I will say this, my mother, she really has always been a great storyteller. And so I hope I got that gift, from her. She can take just a regular story and make it so entertaining. And I started writing, poetry and I did a few short stories. So way back when during childhood. So I've always kind of had that. And then I feel like I've got a pretty good handle on English and grammar. And I've had jobs that involve, composing letters and that sort of thing. So I had that background. And actually, when I started writing novels, it was because I kind of ran out of the stories by my favorite authors. And so I have a very, very creative imagination. I'm always imagining, I think writers do that anyway. They take something and they try to make a conspiracy theory out of it or something,
Oh, so you do have a deviant mind.
Yeah.
Because I was just wondering if the writing comes to you naturally or this deviant mind.
It's a little bit of both.
Yeah.
And I was a big Nancy Drew mystery fan
growing
up. I think a lot of us were, and so I do enjoy putting intrigue into my stories.
Yeah. So you said that your company, your publisher, I forgot the name again.
Bethany House.
Helps you with marketing. How do they help you with marketing? And secondary to that is, what do you do?
Okay, well, what they do for me is they basically have a media plan before the book comes out. They will send the advanced reader copy. That's the copy that comes out before the final edit.
Right.
They'll send that out to the industry publications for possible reviews, places like Kirkus Reviews, Publishers Weekly, Christian Retailing, those kind of places to get the word out. They do social media and also mailings to these places, and I'm sure they send out, like I said, a lot of the ARCs, the advanced reading copies for reviews. And they build the hype for me there. And they also handle all the, the national and international distribution. So that they do the lion's share of that. And for my part, because, I suppose once upon a time authors could just sit at home and write. But nowadays, an author, whether you're traditionally published or you self-published or indie published, you do have to do a certain amount of your own marketing. So I use social media a lot, or I do book signings. And I send out, mailers, for example. May I show this?
Yeah. Sure. Just hold it up there.
Okay.
I'll make sure that gets put up there and all by itself so we can see it.
This is my upcoming novel in December. It's called In Love's Time, and it's the final in my Connecting series, World War I Connecting series. And it's a pre-order card because it is available right now for pre-order at discount price. So readers that are interested can go to their favorite bookstore or go online and look for it, and they'll get their copy once it releases in December.
Yeah.
And so I put together this myself.
We have to wait till December.
Just
kidding.
And so basically that's what I do. So I try to stay present with readers, and I love connecting with my readers. And I have a launch team that helps me every release with, sharing media with other readers. So
I would say that Bethany gets a hold of all of the bookstores. They get a hold of the libraries. And one day we're just going to bow down to you being very famous.
I don't know about that.
So tell us about this book that's coming out in December.
Well,
you gave us a little hint to it. But.
Yes, it's there's one connecting character in all of my World War I series. And his name is Marcus Weatherford. He's a captain in the British Royal Navy. He also works for what we know as MI6, and he works in the Admiralty at Whitehall in London. And all my stories, he's always involved in one way or another because, we've got missions to accomplish.
Right.
And some of my readers have been really, asking for his story. And so this is his adventure, and it involves going to Russia. And I can't give too much away, but
no, because we have to read the book.
That's right. The secret assignment does have some consequences, and then the story takes place in England too. I love England. So
will there be a sequel to this one?
No, I think this is the final in this. I decided to make the best last. So, and I'm looking at I'm now looking at new stories, and I might revisit World War II.
Okay, so that's where my next question to you is, what other projects do you have in the works?
I'm working on some proposals for my publisher right now, and like I said, my very first book was World War II, and I think I would like to revisit that for maybe 2 or 3 books.
Yeah.
And then we'll see where we go from there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of history out there.
There is a lot of history out there, and a lot of people do like to read historical fiction. We have a lot of friends of ours that you and I both know that write historical fiction. And some of it takes it back into early England, the 30 Years' War, 100 Years' War. Abraham Lincoln has been under one of our authors out of Gig Harbor. And
yes, Larry, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, yes, historical fiction is fun.
Yeah, it is fun, and you know what else? It's comforting.
Yeah.
It's comforting in knowing when you look back at history and you see how people struggled and overcame difficulties, and it kind of reminds us of like what's going on today. We will get through this.
Yeah.
Our ancestors got through this, and there's that, and I've seen that written by several readers that's one reason why they really enjoy historical fiction. It's kind of looking at the past and knowing, hey, we're gonna be okay. We're gonna move forward. We're gonna get through this.
Yeah, as a teacher, I understood that because I was teaching social studies to middle school students. And hi, kids, I'm still here. Some of my students are in their 50s now, so because I did start a long time ago. But one of the things that I tried to impart to them when they said, "Well, history's boring," I says, "You're not here without history. History is why you came. These people did live. They are part of who you are today. And it's best that you know history." Or as my dad said, he said, "You've got to know history to plan your future, but you better be living today."
That's right.
And so I can understand that. Now, I delved into science fiction and went into the future. You're trying the past.
Yeah.
You ever try to think of maybe something in the science fiction area?
I'm not really a science fiction writer. I have read some science fiction. I've enjoyed it. But that's not, I really do like historical. I think I just like history a lot. I have a contemporary series I started that's in my drawer at home. I might revisit that one day.
Yeah, how many of us do have manuscripts that are sitting in the drawer that we're just saying,
yes. Those, as one of my writer friends said, it's your apprenticeship. So my apprenticeship is sitting in the drawer, yes.
Have you hit your 1,000,000 words yet?
Oh,
the
gosh.
old adage of 10,000 hours of work and you become an expert. With authors, it's 1,000,000 words and you become an expert.
I would say if we count all the things I didn't delete, probably.
Yes, all the drafts and the manuscripts that are sitting in the drawer.
That's right. Yeah. Yes.
Okay. You travel. I
do, and COVID has been.
Yeah, that's a killer, isn't it?
It is. Yeah. I really miss it, and I've been very, very fortunate. I've been to 14 different countries altogether, and a couple of them twice. And I have written some of my stories involve, places I've been. This novel here, Far Side of the Sea, there's a sequence of it that takes place in Barcelona. And so
someday I'm going to get there. My sister's been there.
It's
says
beautiful.
It's beautiful.
It is. So I went to Barcelona, not really particularly for that reason. I decided to write that into my story. But it was beautiful there. Just, I love seeing different things and trying different foods and just, breathing the different air there.
Right. And so you do research, even if it's not formal, it's just kind of putting nuggets together.
Sure.
And then from those nuggets, you can come up with stories.
Yes, exactly. And so I hope that my readers will feel like they're there. I've been told with the books that they do feel like they're in Scotland, or they're in, the District of Kent in Britain, or they're in Belgium, so.
Yeah, one of the dedications I put into a book, which will be coming out soon, is that I'm dedicating my book to the readers who want to meet the characters and enjoy them as friends.
Yes.
So it's not exactly those words, but I mean the whole idea of your characters become so important to the readers that they really do want to have a relationship with them.
Yes, that's true. And I myself, I have a lot of books on my bookshelf, and I have books that I have collected that I call it my keeper shelf. And I think a lot of readers have that. And these are books that every once in a while I'll pick up and reread, just because I want to be in that world. Mm-hmm. And it always warms my heart when a reader will write me and say, I read it again, or, then you know that you've connected with someone. And it's what you said. You want to be with those characters. You want that story, just like maybe rewatching a movie, or so it's great.
Well, as an experienced writer now, because I mean, good grief, you've been writing nearly a decade in the professional market, and you said you've been writing a lot longer than that.
Oh yeah.
So, do you think that you can help people who are new to the writing for the development of their story arcs, their character designs, their plots, their dialogue, and all this other minutiae of writing that we have?
Yes,
what advice do you have for these people?
Well, I definitely think that people that are starting out writing need to connect with other writers, for one. I strongly recommend they join writers' clubs, go to writers' conferences, particularly in the genre that they're writing. Mm-hmm. If you write science fiction, go to the science fiction conferences. If you write, general fiction, there's a lot of different writers. There's inspirational writer groups, there's general writer groups, there's romance writer groups. And because
that's one of the largest conventions there is.
Yes, there is. And they have wonderful workshops given by, authors. I've done some workshops at smaller conferences, and teaching these things, teaching what we've learned and passing it on, or passing on our process, the way we write or how we approach the project. And everybody's different, and sometimes, you just have to find the right process. It's an ever-changing process. But one thing I would say, having written for so long, is choose what you want to write about, meaning genre, and stick with it, and don't stop writing. When you submit to publishers, maybe they'll come back with some suggestions to you, but don't stop writing. Just continue writing, because when you do publish, you will have a lovely backlist that you'll be able to offer them. And just don't quit. And that's what I did. I would get rejection letters, and I'd get over it, and then I'd sit down at the desk again, and I would continue on. And it finally happened for me. Finally, but I know that it happened for me when it was time.
Yeah.
In fact, it's ironic. My first book, For Such a Time. That's very ironic to my writing career.
It's a strange thing when you're looking for an agent that you're going to hire, but they're interviewing you.
That's right.
And it's kind of a juxtaposition that you want to have an agent, but the agent doesn't necessarily want you. And I found it, to myself, I found it very interesting. So I don't have an agent myself, and I do have my own publishing company, because one of the things I found was it became easier for me to design my covers, to format my books to make them look like a book so that they end up like that, and sending them off to, my particular one is Ingram Spark. And then they send them to Lightning Source where they're printed, and I order as many books because it's print on demand. In your case, you have a marketing department with your publisher who then says, hey, how many books do you want? And because they have an experience with book club with bookstores and libraries, the libraries and the bookstores say, well, we'll take 10 copies, we'll take 5 copies, we'll, whatever it is, and then you're okay, you're in. So I get it. Did you have a mentor? Somebody that you really counted on?
I've had a few mentors. A couple are local writers here, and they've just, not only for craft, I have a critique group, and I would consider them my mentors, but also mentors on just watching these other authors just continue on and just spiral upward to success through hard work and consistency. And I look at that, and there are times when my schedule is very hectic, or maybe I have to fly somewhere or do something, and I think of that person and think, well, she would be doing this, so I can do this, So yes.
Do you have a style of writing? Do you, for instance, do you consider yourself a pantser or a plotter?
I am definitely a plotter. I like a roadmap. I like to know where I'm going. I've painted myself into a few corners. So I basically outline my books first, and that doesn't mean things don't change, but I have...
those dang characters.
I beg your pardon?
Those dang characters.
Yeah.
They start telling you you're going the wrong direction.
I've had that happen. I've been stuck in a scene, and I ask the character what's supposed to happen. And
what are you doing? Yes. Yeah. Do you have a pattern each day to write?
Ideally. It doesn't always work out that way, but I like to write about 4 to 5 to 6 hours a day.
Okay.
And about 5 days a week. And when I'm on deadline, I don't get out of the chair. Yeah. It has to be done. It has to be turned in. And that is one thing about being traditional published. You sign a contract to have a book turned in, and
they actually expect you to do stuff.
Yeah, they actually do. Yeah. And but that's good for me too. So they're probably I don't know. I'd probably dilly-dally around if I didn't have a contract.
Yeah. If a book club or other organization wanted to invite you to speak, how do they contact you?
Oh, I love doing book clubs, either by Zoom or in person, and they can go to my website, katebreslin.com, and scroll down.
That, by the way, we will put into the credits.
Okay, so and they can scroll all the way down to the bottom, and there's a contact form. They can click on that too, and just let me know. And if they're in the local area of Puget Sound, I can possibly come and be there in person if they like. And if they're not, I've done several Zooms, and I love doing those. It's always fun. Yeah.
Well, I got to see you with Sheila Roberts last winter at Liberty Bay Books.
Yes, Sheila's
and
wonderful.
Then you were also, what was it, 2 weeks ago, almost now, at the brand new bookstore under the stairs.
Yeah, Bookshop Under the Stairs in Port Orchard.
In Port Orchard, that is on Town Square Mall. And do you have anything else coming up?
I have a couple of, I have basically a librarians conference coming up. It's more or less private to the librarians. That's coming up in June. And possibly doing the Lavender Festival in Sequim. I'll be there selling books.
Now that is...
that's the, probably going to be...
Is that August?
No, it's the, I believe it'll be right around the 18th or 19th of July, whatever that weekend is. Okay. And then I will be a keynote and workshop presenter at the Oregon Christian Writers Conference in, it's a one-day conference in, I believe it's Tualatin, Oregon in October.
Very good.
And right now that's all I've got on my slate, so.
Well, that sounds like enough. So we all start out with that first word, and we go with the construction of our paragraphs and finally get into a manuscript. Do you have any other advice for a writer of nonfiction or fiction starting out in this business?
Well, if they have a manuscript that they want to publish, I strongly recommend they find readers, beta readers, to read it first and give their views and not be afraid of constructive direction. And I would say if they're just starting out writing, again, I would reiterate, get into a writer's group. And the other thing is that's wonderful now. I mean, when I started writing some of my books, it was way before, the computer. We had the internet so available to everyone, and it's a marvelous way. There are so many websites now that will literally teach you how to write. Yeah. And to visit those and just Google, how to write a book or how to write this, that, and the other. And there are a lot of reputable sites. I might plug one of my friends' websites. It's Aspiring Writer Academy, and it's Darlene Panzera and her daughter Samantha, and they have a lot of resources on their site on how to write a book. And just start there. Because it does take a lot of learning. I'll tell you, I thought I could just sit down and write a novel.
Yeah, there's
I
more
think
to
we
it
all
than that,
do,
yeah.
and realized it's not as easy as you think. And then when you were mentioning earlier, when you try to send to an agent who's probably, got tons of manuscripts there or proposals they're combing through, and then editors the same at the publishing house, you really need to make sure that that your manuscript sparkles and that you've got an idea that they're going to be interested in.
Yeah. Darlene's, by the way, has sat where you are. We have interviewed her. It's been a number of years ago now, but COVID got in the way.
Yeah, she's a wonderful writer.
Well, I want to thank you, Kate, for sharing all that you do in this literary world and coming out to record this show. I look forward to following your endeavors. We do have a share in this common interest in writing.
Yeah, we do.
And I invite you to be part of our Kitsap Literary Artists and Writers and come to our meetings. We have one next week over at the Spiro's Pizza in West Bremerton, not too far from your home. And it's at 7 o'clock at night. And just come and talk. We talk marketing. And there are several things that we are doing throughout the summer and into the fall, so that we can get out there and meet.
Absolutely.
As we continue to work together, maybe you could sit over here on this side and host an interview with one of those friends of yours who writes. Maybe Sheila wants to come in and you could be the person asking her questions. What a change that would be, huh?
That would be wonderful.
Well, we enjoy having you as a member of our group, and we await your interview of our favorite Northwest authors and artists. I would like to thank all our viewers for tuning in to the Bremerton Kitsap Access Television and viewing this Kitsap Literary Artists and Writers production. I also wish to thank the BCAT staff on the cameras and in the director's chair. Our broadcasts are scheduled for Saturday evenings at 6 p.m. on Astound Channel 3 and Comcast Channel 12. You can also view a live stream on the BCAT website at bkat.org at 6 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time. Keep in touch with our social media and author web pages to discover where you can meet local authors and artists, and come meet these people who write the books you cannot resist. I hope everyone has a pleasant evening and a productive and fascinating week. And until next Saturday, I am Peter Stockwell with the Kitsap Literary Artists and Writers in conjunction with the Bremerton Kitsap Access Television. Have a good night.